Okay, hello Bio 2, says Mr. B. This is our last section in chapter 23, so we're going to look at transportation in planes. We did the transport of water last time, so now we're going to look at the transport of nutrients. If this will go. Okay, so we're going to look at how are the products of photosynthesis, this would be our nutrients or our sugars, transported throughout a plant. So many plants pump sugars into their fruits, so that would be an angiosperm. Remember, a fruit is just to help disperse seeds. And in cold climates, plants can pump their food into their roots for winter storage. So this is just kind of some options of where nutrients can go. And this stored food must be moved back into the trunk and branches of the plant before growth begins again in the spring. So for this cold climates one right here, in order for our plant to kind of continue to grow once the conditions get back up, we're going to need to pump it back out. And so this is described being as a movement from source to sink, and we're going to describe what these words mean in terms of a plant, so they're just kind of like a little analogy here. So a process of phloem transport moves sugars through a plant from a source to a sink. So the source is any cell in which sugars are produced by photosynthesis. So that's kind of self-explanatory. The source is the source of the food or the sugars produced by photosynthesis. And a sink is any cell where the sugars are used or stored. So these are just general terms. So source being a kind of producer and a sink being a storage area or an area where it would be used. So we're going to talk about how plants move, or how the plant will move nutrients from the source to the sink. So when nutrients are pumped into or removed from the phloem system, the change in concentration causes a movement of fluid in that same direction. So it's basically being like our little osmosis here. Once the concentration changes in one area, water is going to flow. And as a result, the phloem is able to move nutrients in either direction to meet the nutritional needs of a plant. Now if this is confusing, we're going to break it down. We'll see some nice little graphics here with some moving arrows. So don't be too worried right now. And so the idea that explains how the phloem transport takes place is called the pressure flow hypothesis. So this is going to be important on how nutrients are moved throughout the plants. It's called the pressure flow hypothesis. And so how this works here, if I go to the next slide. Okay, so sugars, we're going to start with our very tip of their leaf here, where sugars are produced during photosynthesis are pumped into the phloem. So as you can see up here on the right, you have some moving arrows. We have our source cell where the sugars are being produced are moving into the phloem. So that's step one, the movement of sugar into the phloem. And as sugar concentrations increase in the phloem, water from the xylem moves in by osmosis. So go back here, first step is, water. Our first step is sugars moving in. After sugars move in, water follows from the xylem, and as a result, I think we missed something here. Let's go back. Okay. And then this movement causes an increase in pressure at that point, forcing nutrient-rich fluid. So now we have water and sugar molecules, so that's our nutrient-rich fluid, to move through the phloem from nutrient-producing regions. So we're starting, again, this is our source cell. This is where our nutrients are produced, mixing with our water. So they're flowing from nutrient-producing regions toward a region that uses these nutrients, or the sink. So down here, where you want to get them to the sink, we want to get the nutrients there. So if part of a plant actively absorbs nutrients from the phloem, osmosis will cause water to follow. So as you can see on the left here, our sink cell only wants the nutrients, it doesn't want the water. However, we still have water right here, and it is going to go back into the xylem through osmosis. And this decreased pressure causes a movement of fluid in the phloem toward the sink. So we have our nutrients starting from our source going to the sink. So that is it for this chapter. If you have any questions,